I'd like to invite the next speaker to the stage. Dustin Colson is going to be talking about navigating barriers and scaling SmartPass, which is a system that's used to monitor fishing vessels entering and leaving port, and addressing the challenges associated with shore-based camera monitoring for a fisheries scenario. So, Dustin, if we could invite you to the stage.
Thank you. Welcome. Again, my name is Dustin Colson, and I'm with the Environmental Defense Fund. So again, my presentation is titled Navigating Barriers and Scaling SmartPass, Addressing Challenges in Expanding a Shore-Based Camera System for Fishery Monitoring. So to understand SmartPass, it's first helpful to highlight that a core component of fisheries management is understanding what? The total catch within a specific fishery. Now, the majority of recreational and small-scale fisheries around the world lack access to this type of precise catch data. We've heard about methodologies, surveys, and other processes for understanding catch rates, which can be fairly successful. But that's the estimated number of fish caught per fishing trip. But one of the greatest challenges is estimating effort in a timely, accurate, and cost-efficient way. So today I'll be talking about one solution in the space of estimating effort. Specifically, as mentioned before, counting fishing trips via vessel counts. So the solution is to enable managers through technology. That is, in fact, after all, why we're here. So the SmartPass framework is comprised of mounting cameras, as you can see in this photo, at either a river mouth, a coastal pass, a port, or even occasionally a boat ramp. This is then combined with a platform used for video review and artificial intelligence training. This then enables artificial intelligence assistance with the capability of estimating the number of vessel trips moving through the pass, which serves as a measure of fishing effort. So now that I've introduced the overall concept behind the technology, I'd like to discuss some of the barriers to scaling this technology. My hope is that it may be instructive for others in the room, technology providers, technology implementers, who may be facing similar challenges of their own. So the first barrier I'd like to discuss is, this is out of order. Here we go. The first barrier I'd like to discuss is a geographical barrier. So as you can see here on the lower right side of the screen, we've got a cross-channel view where the camera is situated. And we found through early testing that this performed much better in comparison to the bar view. And this was largely a factor of the distance from the boat to the camera, but also with the bar view, you've got boats coming in from left to right, different angles, making turns and whatnot. But as you know, you're not always going to have this perfect inlet situation, right? Not all geographies are created equal. And so one of the things that EDF did to prioritize, socializing this technology is conducting a geospatial analysis, analyzing the coastal states within the United States, looking at not only where there are narrow inlets, but also where there is heavy fishing vessel traffic. In this way, we could make sure to precisely talk to the right fishery managers where this technology is very suitable. So now I'd like to talk about, actually I got to back up here, somehow got out of order, apologies. But Oregon is actually one case study where EDF was able to partner with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, where we were able to work with CVision AI to implement this technology. It was very suitable from a geographical landscape. You've got a limited number of inlets that actually capture about 90% of recreational fishing effort. So this is kind of a proof point for scaling this technology, but hopefully, as the technology improves, you're going to be able to scale to different geographies that may not be as clean-cut as this one. With camera improvements and algorithm improvements, hopefully this will be applicable in greater areas and more geographies. So another barrier I'd like to discuss is one of technological nature. As you know, a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't necessarily work so well under varying environmental conditions. Previously, we had one algorithm operating under all conditions: clear days, foggy days, nighttime conditions, and it just doesn't really pan out as well as it could. So EDF recognized this, and in partnership with CVision AI, we hired 2 interns to use training data from each environmental condition to train the algorithm to be perfected in specific conditions. So we had training data for clear weather days, we had training data for foggy weather days, and then nighttime conditions. And when you're able to fine-tune the algorithm to each of these, all that's needed for the system to completely run on its own is some sort of indication as to what environmental condition the camera is capturing. So with something like nighttime, really all you need is information on sunrise and sunset. Easy. For something like a foggy weather day, you might just have a grayscale pixel indicator that can indicate, just based on what the frame, what the snapshot of the camera is capturing looks like, you can switch between clear weather and foggy weather. So here we have an example of how this technology works. It's showing the bounding boxes of each vessel as it's moving through the frames. And when you see that bounding box, you know that the object identifier is working. And then when you have the same color bounding box moving from frame to frame, you can tell that it's tracking it successfully across the screen, meaning you're not double counting, you're not missing that boat. And as you can see, it works fairly well, except perhaps with this last vessel here, showing that there is still some room for performance growth even in clear weather conditions. So here we have a foggy weather snapshot, and it works in this shot quite well actually, but as you can imagine, as the severity of the fog increases, you might have trouble just with human review identifying a boat, and the same is true for machine vision. So to account for the fact that there's varying levels of uncertainty with the environmental conditions, some ideas have been proposed. If you're able to have the system indicate when there's clear weather, you might rely 100% on AI-generated counts. If instead the system is indicating that there's maybe low levels of fog or it's nighttime, you might instead have a subsampling approach, just looking at a small sample of the data with human validation to make sure that the algorithm is performing as expected. And then lastly, if the system indicates that there is heavy fog, and there's of course high uncertainty associated with that data, then you might throw out the AI counts and instead rely on human review. This way you're able to tailor human supervision to where it's most needed and increase efficiency overall. So the last barrier I'd like to talk about is the barrier of integrating with existing surveys. And this has really been a challenge for broadening the impact of SmartPass within the states. I've already discussed briefly about how this system has been implemented successfully in Oregon, and it nested quite nicely within their Ocean Recreational Boat Survey program. But this is one state, and they have a lot of autonomy over their specific methodology. So during our geospatial analysis, we indicated that there are actually a lot of different coastlines in the Atlantic coast and the Gulf Coast that would be suitable for this approach. But when we approached experts in the area, they had some reservations. There's a standardized mill-based survey in this area that has differing geographies of scale in terms of how that fishing effort survey is administered and how the data is actually presented to decision makers. And so there were some concerns about being able to integrate the SmartPass framework within their existing system. As you can see here, there is a lot of skepticism from the public. Not everyone from the fishing community is on board. They don't necessarily think that this legacy system is working as they hoped. So this kind of opens the door to potentially have a paradigm shift where we can implement a technology, or at least prove that this SmartPass technology may remedy some of these issues that they're facing. So in fact, the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council already is conducting a side-by-side comparison of the camera-based system to the legacy mail-based fishing effort survey. And their biggest concern with this approach, and the reason they may never want to do this again, is they had some issues with just the time-intensive nature of 100% human review. So knowing that this was their main concern, EDF and Vision AI approached the Fishery Management Council and offered to run the algorithm free of cost to hopefully just demonstrate a proof point of how this can be done much more efficiently while still maintaining accuracy. So now that I've talked about some barriers and some potential workaround solutions that we've tried to come up with, I'd like to close out with some final thoughts. First off, the algorithm insights in Clearweather perform quite well, and this really serves as a strong foundation to build upon and continue improving the algorithm over time. Also, the flexibility of the system, understanding when human validation is needed, understanding when decision tree approaches can be operated, training different algorithms on different data. That flexibility is a real strength of this system and allows for tailoring to new and different deployments. And then lastly, every time this technology gets deployed, we learn from our mistakes. We also train and improve the algorithm on more data, increasing its efficiency over time, and then hopefully demonstrating more proof points to the public and different fishing communities that this really is a solution that can be implemented, not just in the States, but worldwide. So with that, I'd like to thank you for listening to my presentation. Feel free to find me afterwards because I really am interested in hearing where this technology might be applicable in a regional fishery near you. Thank you all.